Guys, thank you so much for being on this Collider Connected. Was Oliver and Company the first time you guys had actually worked on the same project together?
I mean, we might have been on the same project, but we didn't work together.
Yeah, we didn't collaborate.
Kirk, you were in like animation or cleanup or something?
Yeah, I was in animation, and then I got the chance to do story on Oliver. Me, Kevin Lima, and Chris Bailey got spun off to work on a couple sequences on Oliver. But you and I never collaborated on that movie.
Right.
You also worked on Rescuers Down Under, but
That's probably the first time we worked together.
Okay.
Right.
And was there like an immediate like chemistry, like, oh,
we already knew each other. I mean, Gary and I were already friends, you know, from
college,
school, and from Disney. I was always a fan of Gary's drawings and Gary's sense of humor. So you know, to me, working with Gary was such an easy fit. You know,
it was a great room. I mean, it was like 2 rows of desks. You know, like I don't know, like 5 or 6 desks in a row in this big. God, it was like the size of a gymnasium. But you know, like these big, these 2. It was carpeted though. These 2 rows that went down, and then, you know, the story guys were on either side. And I think there was an animator in there. Pete Doctor, I think, was in there as an animator. Yeah, I mean, it was a great room. It was like everybody knew everybody, and we all got along really well. And so it was a good time.
Yeah, I mean, at the same time, wasn't like Chris Sanders was in there, Kelly Asbury was in there,
Kelly, Ed Gombert was in there.
Yeah. So it was kind of.
And then Joe was just right down the hall. Joe was at the end of the hall.
Joe Ramp.
So yeah, it was a great room.
Well, can you talk about how you got onto the Cranium Command project and what that was like?
Yes, we can.
Okay.
Well, Kirk and I had been summarily fired from Rescuers Down Under because of our bad attitudes. And we asked too many questions.
Yeah, we had the temerity to question the wisdom of the decision to no longer make the boy Aboriginal, instead turn him into a little white boy,
a little blonde boy.
We questioned the wisdom of that decision, and you know, didn't last long after that.
And we were troublemakers. So we got put into daycare, which at that time was called development. Animation development then is not like, you know, studio development is these days. Development then was like a big room or a couple of big rooms where artists went to just draw and paint and do whatever. And these were artists that there was no current project for, but the studio didn't want to fire them. Right. So we would just be put in this daycare, and our supervisor was Charlie Fink, and he would come running into the room like every week or 2 and tell us to drop everything. We're going to do Mickey Mouse Halloween. And he'd leave. And that's our direction.
We go, okay.
That's as much as we get. And we go, all right.
Everybody would start drawing like Halloween gags. Like Mickey and
carving a pumpkin, and there's Donald, you know, with a ghost cheat and all this. And then he'd run in again and he'd go, all right, everybody drop everything. We're going to do army ants. And he'd leave. And we'd be like... okay, just start drawing like MASH units with bugs and dragonflies and all this. And so one day he came running in and goes, all right, everybody drop everything. We got this problem. And he spelled out that Disney had contracted an outside studio to do this attraction for Walt Disney World, for Epcot Center. And it had been done. They'd spent like $1 million on it already. And it had been done up in the Bay Area at a place called Colossal. And there were no real Disney people attached to it, other than like some people at Imagineering who were, you know, just trying to get it done, but didn't really have a story sense or, you know, much like that. And because they were like mostly managers, you know, it wasn't like a creative team that they put on it. It was like managers to get it done. And then the people who were sponsoring it was Metropolitan Life, who is, you know, an insurance company known for their comedy sense and storytelling.
Yeah, so, a bunch of crazy cut-ups there at Life Building.
So the executives at Disney, Frank Wells, Michael Eisner, and Jeffrey Katzenberg at that time, took a look at their story reel, their work in progress, and put the hard brakes on it and said, hold up, what are we spending money on this crap for? Because admittedly, it wasn't very good. I mean, they were doing the best they could with what they had.
I think they were basically just following orders. I think they were working toward with the script that they were given and whatever designs that they were given, and put it together for probably an extremely low budget. But Michael and Jeffrey saw it, and they were like, "This does not feel Disney. This doesn't look Disney. This."
We don't want this in a Disney property.
Yeah, they were kind of embarrassed by the quality of it. That's when they decided to kind of roll the dice and say, "Okay, what if we take this little 4-minute pre-show and kind of drop it on Charlie Mink's visual development department?" And see if a couple of guys from animation can take a crack at this material, freshen it up, make it fun, make it feel Disney. And so Gary and I got put on it. Me, Gary, and a guy named Tom Cito.
Tom Cito.
Yeah, another story artist. And I remember we were shown the original short, and we asked them, well, how much of this do we need to keep? And they told us we didn't have to keep any of it.
Needed to keep the name, like one of the names of the characters.
Right, that's right.
It was general knowledge. It was like, we want to keep general knowledge. Like, all right, we can do that.
We want to keep the name general knowledge, and we want to keep this kind of overall stress management theme. And we had to set up the basic premise of the ride. Those
were like feed into the ride. So
right, those were like the three things. So general knowledge, stress management, and set the audience up for this experience, which is you're going to go inside the head of a 13-year-old boy and follow him around on his day and try to navigate your way as his little brain pilot, as best as you can.
I was looking at the timing of things, and when they screened the Purdom version of Beauty and the Beast was around the same time as Wonders of Life opened. I mean, did they screen it at MGM and go over to Epcot and go, these are the guys that should take over the movie, or how did that happen?
No, I'm not exactly sure where that ill-fated screening happened. I don't know whether that happened in London or happened in
Orlando.
LA.
It was in Orlando?
Yeah, it was in Orlando.
Oh, boy.
Yeah. We were not at that screening.
No,
so
we were not.
We finished Cranium Command, opened it up, got to go in it with like a real audience, the public, and said, "Wow, this is kind of fun," because the public was digging it, and this was our first directing gig, so we were like, "Wow, this is fun," and it was like a 90-day job, but
right.
from the time we got it to the time it had to open the doors to the public, 90 days. So
yeah, we got really lucky because Rescuers had kind of dug itself into this big story hole that they were trying to crawl their way out of, and that meant
animators sitting around.
Yeah, we had top-notch animators to work on this silly little 4-minute short.
We had Dave Pruxma. We had Pete Doctor.
Yeah, we had Andreas Deja.
We had Andreas. We had Sedina. I mean, we had a bunch of great people.
So the screening happens, and
the
movie's not working.
Right.
At all. Right.
We were not notified of we were not notified of this. We were not the studio's first choice.
Right. We were peripherally aware that something was going on with Beauty and the Beast. I had seen some pre-production artwork floating around the halls, and I kind of looked at it and I was like, that's good. That's kind of fun.
Don had approached it, on and off, over the course of the. Well, Don was our producer on Cranium Command, and he was also
no. Don Ernst was our producer on Cranium.
Don Ernst was our producer.
Different Don.
Right. Don Hahn was like in contact saying, "Hey, you guys want to come to London? You guys want to do some storyboards? You want to do some funny stuff?"
Right.
And we were like, "Well, I mean, that's kind of a big jump, and I don't know that much about it, and I just bought a house, and so it was kind of a big thing." So when this happened, was it Rob? I think they asked Rob Minkoff. He was their first choice.
Yeah, they asked a lot of different potential dates to this particular dance, and we were definitely I think the last.
We were like third or fourth in line.
Yeah.
After other people had turned it down or were not available for whatever reason, and the story in my head is they said, well, Kirk and Gary didn't fuck up the Cranium Command too much, so let's get them.
Yeah,
So,
amazingly, they actually liked it. I mean, Cranium Command turned out well. I think it was
Yeah.
a surprise to everybody. And because, looking back on it now, if I had to guess what the reasoning was, we took a troubled project, turned it around in a very short time frame, and it was considered a success.
Right.
And I think they probably thought, okay, we have another troubled project. It needs to be turned around in a very short time frame. Maybe we should roll the dice on these guys.
Right. Well, I mean, going into it, what did you guys have okay, this is our take on the material? Or was it more of a...
We were given, by the time we came onto it, Howard Ashman had already been pulled on as an executive producer. So he and Linda Wolverton had been bumping their heads together and coming up with a revised outline. I mean, literally just like maybe a 5-page outline of a new structure.
Again, this was a case where, from the version that the Purdums had to the version that we did, or that Howard and Linda worked on, only the names were the same. I mean, everything else was like
everything. Howard threw everything out,
right,
and started over. And so when we got onto the project, all we had was the title, a 4 or 5 page outline, with some little kind of notations next to certain ideas for the kind of the sequences that would make up the story, for where songs might be spotted.
Right.
And it was, and it was literally as much as, I mean, this is the earlier version of it. Maurice is captured by the beast, or rather, Maurice goes to the castle. The objects welcome him and fix him a big dinner. Song?
Yeah.
It was that detailed.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, obviously, your version had Howard Ashman, which is a huge, plus. Can you guys talk a little bit about what it was like working with him? And I know this was sort of at the end of his life, really, right? I mean, he was pretty sick by the end of production.
By the end of production, he was. At the beginning of production, we didn't know.
No, we had no idea. Gary and I learned all this after the fact. Howard was already ill when he started the movie, and which was one of the reasons why he insisted that we come to New York, that we bring our little skeleton crew of kind of our commando team of story artists and character designers and our art director. He insisted that we come to him, that we basically move the mountain to Muhammad. And Gary and I at the time, I remember, thought it was sort of a, kind of a little bit of a diva thing. We were like, oh, well, he's been so successful with Little Mermaid, I guess we got to do what Howard wants, okay. And I didn't realize.
We didn't know the real story.
Yeah, we didn't know the real story. And the real story was obviously much more complex than that.
Right.
But nonetheless, we all piled into an airplane and found ourselves, on a snowy morning on Park Avenue in New York, in one of the Disney offices on a high floor, meeting with Howard and Linda and our little team of artists, which was Brenda Chapman, Roger Allers, Chris Sanders, Sue Nichols, and Brian. Yeah.
Well, I mean, can you talk about what his contributions were to the story of Beauty and the Beast? I know that he famously fought for the little boy beast.
That was his biggest thing. His I think kind of the biggest imprint I think Howard had on it was he was the one who said, okay, let's decide who is really the protagonist of the story. And Howard's mind, the beast is the protagonist of the story. This is his story because he goes through the greatest change. And so that was his initial take on it. When Gary and I came into the mix, we argued that this is a love story. You have two protagonists.
They're right in the title.
Right, exactly. We said it's in the title. It's Beauty and the Beast. It's not just.
We actually used that argument.
Yeah, we said those very things at the table. We pissed a few people off. I remember Linda Wolverton banged her head on the table at one point in frustration with us. Literally.
Not the first or last time either.
Yeah. And but we had a lot of support from Roger Allers and Brenda Chapman, who backed us up and said, this is really a story with two protagonists. This is a story about two characters who come together and they change each other, and they become, they become a couple. And so it was kind of those two takes on the material, Howard's and ours, that kind of combined and became sort of the underpinnings of Beauty and the Beast. But again, to your question about what Howard's specific contributions were, because he felt that the songs were so integral to the storytelling, he literally, the sort of signposts that lead you through the entire story are the songs themselves. So that they were extremely important, and became and they were also important from a production standpoint, because if Howard and Alan could start writing the songs and we could get the songs approved, then we could put the songs into production while we ironed out other story issues.
And they were generally kind of high production numbers as well. They were complex and difficult and good to get going on early, because if they came late, then we never would have got them done.
Right. No, there was a lot of really smart reasoning behind using the songs as kind of the backbone of the movie.
We had a song called "Human Again," which is in the Broadway version, and we went round and round and round trying to storyboard that and get it up. The big problem with that, it was like a 9-minute song. It just spanned so much film time, and we would board it, and it just went on forever. We joked about it, that while they're singing all this time, the seasons are passing, and poor old Maurice is out there with his lantern going, "Belle, where are you?" And we see him walking past, the Great Pyramids, and he's walking through the jungles of Borneo, and like, "Belle!" And meanwhile, it's springtime at the castle.
I mean, in the meantime, we cut to Gaston in the pub, and he's growing a long white beard.
Right. So we started trimming it. It's like, this is too long. 9 minutes is ridiculous. And so we cut it, and we cut it, and we cut it until we killed it. And so Howard said, "Okay, fine, I'll just write another song." So he wrote Something There.
Right.
So that was like a late entry. In the time between the release of the movie and the release of the play, Alan figured out how to make it work. And, so he, what was it, like a year or 9 months or whatever, however long it took. But he thought about it because he really loved that. And he hated Seeing It Go. I mean, we all hated Seeing It Go because it was a really nice song. But Alan figured it out. And so when they put it on the stage, when we did the what was it, the extended version or the supplemented version, and we had Human Again in it, that was based on the structure that Alan had come up with for the play. We said, "Oh, they made it work. Well, now we can put it in."
At what point did you guys think, or did you ever think, man, we have a really special movie on our hands? I mean, did that ever enter into your consciousness while you were making it?
Honestly, it didn't for me, it didn't really, because we were just like running, we were sprinting to get this thing done, and it wasn't like, oh, this is going to be a masterpiece. We were just like, we were trying to not embarrass ourselves.
Right.
We wanted to have something that would be good enough to stand up with the classics, from the 30s, 40s, 50s, from the old stuff, that we wouldn't just look stupid, in the company of these. For me, it wasn't until we took it to Radio City, the screening that we did for them, where it was like the work in progress reel,
right, for the
New York standing ovation, that I thought, that for me, it was like the first time it was like, holy crap, this we might have something.
This might actually work. My version of that is I remember one of our trips to New York to Fishkill, where we were brainstorming with Howard and Alan. They had just written a song for the dance. They had just written the Beauty and the Beast ballad. And we were sitting at the conference table, and Alan's got this rented electric piano, and snow was falling outside. Snow always seemed to be falling outside whenever we were up there. And they said, "Oh yeah, we've written the ballad for Beauty and the Beast." We were like, "Oh well, can we hear it?" And they're like, "Oh no, it's not ready yet. It's not ready yet." And finally we said, come on, pretty please. And they were like, "Oh, okay, fine." So Alan sits behind this little rented keyboard, and Howard sings the vocal, and we were all just mesmerized. You could hear a pin drop. And I remember thinking to myself, oh my God, I had sort of a tingle where I thought, this is going to be there when you wish upon a star.
Right.
I just felt it. It felt so right. And I think everybody at the table had the same feeling. And that's when I started to think, we might be onto something pretty special here. But like Gary says, there were so many moments during the course of the movie where I was just, had my head buried in my hands going, oh God, no one's going to watch this. They're going to laugh this off the screen. This is terrible.
Yeah. I mean, we went through these phases like, this is looking pretty good. This is looking okay. Oh God, I hate everything. And we were like
yeah,
roller coaster like that.
Exactly.
There was a time at one point, it was like, 2/3, 3/4 of the way through production. I mean, we were like well underway. And Brian McEntee had come in and goes, guys, you're going to make $100 million on this. And we laughed at him. We said, no, what, you're crazy. No animated movie had ever. Little Mermaid was the record holder at that time, and they had done 86. Right. And that was like crazy.
It was insane. I mean, that was double.
And Brian's telling us we're gonna beat 100 million.
We thought he was out of his mind. We thought we'd be lucky to get anywhere near Mermaid's numbers.
How much of a surprise was the Best Picture nomination? I mean, did they kind of go to you and say, we're working on a campaign? I mean, did they campaign for it, or was it?
Yeah, actually did campaign.
Yeah. And there was buzz around town that we were aware of. I mean, we weren't like part of it, but we had heard people are talking about it. So it wasn't. It was a complete shock, and it wasn't.
Okay. Right after Beauty and the Beast, you guys went back to storyboarding on Lion King, right? I mean, what was that decision like, and what did you guys contribute to that movie?
Well, my contribution, I didn't do any boards per se, but I was part of a kind of big, let's rip it apart and start over again weekend meeting that Gary was part of, and Brenda and Roger were part of.
Chris was there,
and Chris Sanders and Rob Minkoff, and Lion King had gotten to a point where they needed to crack the story, and they hadn't yet.
Okay.
And so we literally took a weekend and put our heads together and threw out suggestions and did little sketches and wrote ideas down on paper and slapped them to the wall and hammered out the basic outline, which remained unchanged throughout the course of production. So that was my contribution, but Gary actually went on to do production storyboards.
I did some boards, and for me it was like kind of a relief because Beauty was such a slog. I mean, it was like so high intensity, like fast schedule, everything, that like being able to like sit back and breathe and just draw was a relief.
Right. So
let's see, there are a couple sequences. There's the one where young Simba is talking to Scar, about what a weirdo he is, and Scar is being urbane and oblique, and the song "Be Prepared."
Okay.
With the goose stepping hyenas.
Right.
And then just like bits in between, versions of sequences that were mostly thrown out, but there's a scene, with like the buzzard circling around little Simba, and there's Timon and Pumbaa on a log, just like little bits here and there, and that's all that survived of those sequences.
While Gary was doing that, I got pulled in to work on this live action film, Homeward Bound.
Okay.
That's when that was, yeah.
Which was the remake of the original, which is about the three pets who get lost in the woods and have to find their way home.
It's like Incredible Journey or something like that.
Yeah, it was a remake of Incredible Journey. And once again, I found myself in the exact same scenario that Cranium Command and Beauty and the Beast were done under. It was a movie that they'd spent a lot of money on. It was finished, not testing well.
Okay.
It had a very limited amount of time between where they were at that time and its release. And they were like, well, what can we do to make this better? And they were like, well, let's haul in somebody from animation. And I was available. And so I was involved in the process of working with a writer to rewrite all the animals' dialogue. There was no lip sync, so we could rewrite it all. Recasting all the actors who were playing the animals, and re-recording all of their dialogue. So I got a executive producer credit for that, but those were my contributions.
Who were the original voices? Do you remember?
Yes, the original voices, and this is no disrespect to any of them because they're all fine actors. The original voices were Donald Sutherland as the golden retriever, John Cryer as the bulldog, and Annie Potts as the cat. And on paper, it sort of seems like a good idea, but there were a couple things. The writing was bad. The direction of the performances was off. So they never felt like they were really relating to one another, and it just tonally was like all over the place. They just felt like they were in 3 different movies, and so it made the most sense to just start over, clean slate. Okay. We recast everybody. We got John Amici as the golden retriever, Michael J. Fox as the bulldog, and Sally Field as the cat.
Right.
Well, but you guys did start developing somewhat shortly after that, right? The Song of the Sea. Can you talk about what that project was and why it sort of didn't come together?
Yeah, we after Gary was done with Lion King and I was done with Homeward Bound, we ended up back in essentially in development, although it was in another building by that time.
Yeah.
And there were a couple projects we were toying around with. We were toying around with this one script that was floating around called Dragons, and it was all about the secret life of dragons. DreamWorks ended up covering that idea years later.
Right.
But we did a bunch of like presentation boards for that, and then a team of composers, Lynn Ahrens and Stephen Flaherty, pitched their idea for what was essentially kind of a retelling of the Orpheus legend, but with humpback whales, if you can believe that.
Yeah, it was Orpheus and Eurydice.
Yeah, Orpheus and Eurydice
with whales.
Yeah, and they had an outline, and they had several songs written, and we sat in on a very nice little presentation that they did, where they sang some of the songs and talked through the outline, and I remember thinking, oh, this is pretty good. I think this could make a good movie, and so we got pulled onto that for a while.
I think Dave Getz was part of that too, wasn't he, for just a little bit?
Yeah.
And there was some artwork done, and we toyed around with some ideas, and there were some obvious difficulties, like some of like one of the main sidekicks was like a shrimp, and having a conversation between a whale and a shrimp is difficult to stage, but we were sure that we could figure it out.
Right. Yeah.
We were on that track, like kind of optimistic and kind of like, this is interesting when we got the call from Jeffrey. Yeah,
we were literally in the middle of doing that. We had already started to do some outline boards and had even started working with a composer for maybe some different takes on some of the songs that they wrote. And then the phone rang, and it was Jeffrey Katzenberg. And
he said, "You're doing Hunchback or what?"
He said, "Guys, drop everything." Yeah. I mean, he literally said, "Drop everything." He's like, "Well, what's this about? What are you talking about?" He's like, "Only about the rest of your lives."
Yeah, and he said he was really excited because a treatment had come in that he was really excited for, that Tab Murphy had written for the Hunchback of Notre Dame. I kind of peripherally knew that Hunchback of Notre Dame was kind of floating around in development, but at the time I had no idea how far they'd gone.
I don't think I even knew that it was in development.
Yeah.
I mean, I know David Staten took it to the higher ups, like in a comic book form. He was like,
right.
"Don't you think this would be great?" And
right. Classics Illustrated version.
Yeah. But I don't think I knew that until we got that phone call, that it was like, "What? Really? Okay."
Yeah. Well, because basically when Jeffrey called us, he was like, "Drop everything. We're going to fast track this project, and we want you guys to direct it." And so the given the choice between a greenlit movie and going in circles in development, a greenlit movie is always a better option.
And I mean, to be fair, Hunchback of Notre Dame is a great story.
Oh yeah.
Again, it had it had some difficulties. Like in Victor Hugo's version, everybody dies. You know, and so we had to figure out how we're going to make this into a Disney picture.
Right. Now we knew going in that it was going to have some challenges, but it also grabbed us, I think, not to speak too much for Gary, but it had a really sympathetic main character. It had really, really strong conflict and potential for incredible visuals.
Right.
So it just excited us as animation filmmakers.
And there were some interesting casting what ifs for that one too, right? Cyndi Lauper, Gargoyles.
Yeah. The first person that was actually cast as Quasimodo was Meatloaf.
Really?
Yep.
He wasn't cast. He read for it, right?
Well, that's actually a really good question.
I mean, he was like an almost cast. It was like a callback kind of thing. I don't think we actually put pen to paper.
Yeah, I think that's true. I think there was never a signed contract, but we got so far as to meet with Meatloaf at a recording studio off Santa Monica Boulevard, and I think Alan was there, and we talked with Meatloaf. He actually ran through out there Quasimodo's song.
Wow!
And he was really good.
Yeah, he was terrific.
He was really good. And I mean, it was far along in the process, you know, like almost cast to the point where Kirk and I were asking each other, you know, like on the way back to the car, it's like, okay, so do we call him Meat or Mr. Loaf or what do we call him?
And you talked to Mandy Patinkin too about Hunchback, right?
Oh, yes, God. In one of our casting sessions in New York, Mandy Patinkin came in and actually read for the part. And again, Mandy Patinkin, amazing actor, incredible career, big fan, disastrous audition.
Really?
And I'll let Gary take from there.
He brought his own accompanist. I mean, we had a guy there who was, you know, he was on the piano, and everybody that came in and sang, he supplied the music. So his accompanist had rearranged the song, and
this is what Stephen Schwartz.
Alan and Stephen just like
in the room. In the room, he says, "Oh yes, well we took the liberty of rearranging your song." So yeah.
And so they played it, and Kirk and I were like, and you could see Alan and Stephen just like turning red and levitating, and you know, like the room behind him is getting dark, and it was just like, okay, this and when he finished with the song, and I can't remember who it was, but like almost immediately they said, Kirk and Gary, you guys want to step outside? And we're like, okay. And we went outside.
All right.
We went outside, and then there was an argument that went on inside.
There was just. I'll back up just a little bit because this part's kind of funny. We could hear like sort of a animated, so to speak, discussion happening on the other side of the door while we were in the hall. And then Mandy Patinkin came back out, ostensibly to work with us on a little bit of the dialogue. He was going to read a dialogue scene because he hadn't yet for the move for
right.
So we were supposed to give him some feedback and talk a little about the character. So Mandy's he's very gracious with us, and he's talking to us and he's kind of nodding and he's sort of a little bit intense. Then like in mid sentence, like Gary and I were talking, and at one point Mandy just goes, "Guys, I'm really sorry. I can't do this." And he turns on his heel and he goes back into the room and shuts the door. And then the fireworks really started. I mean, the walls shook.
Yeah. The engineer and the casting director came out, into the hall with us, and they're like, "Oh my God, oh my God."
Mandy chewed out Steven so bad that Steven was so pissed, he got up and left. So Steven gets in the elevator and he's gone.
And he's gone. He's like putting on his coat and putting on his scarf, and he's out of here. And then Alan has to go.
And Alan's like, I gotta go get him. So Alan puts on his coat and his scarf, and he's in the elevator and he's out of here. So now we've lost
Kirk
Mandy,
and Don
and
and I
we've
are
lost
like,
Alan, and we've lost Stephen.
what
And
the
we're sitting
hell just
there in
happened?
this we're sitting there in this kind of smoking crater of a rehearsal studio, going, "What the hell just happened?"
Which we have since called the Patinkin incident. So,
yes. Many drawings were made about the subject.
oh yeah.
Well, I mean, if you cast that movie today, do you think you would still cast Demi Moore as Esmeralda?
She was fantastic.
Wonderful. Yeah,
Yeah.
she was wonderful.
She was great.
Yeah, and we were. I mean, God, at the time, Demi Moore was a movie star. I mean, my God, it was a huge get to actually get her to come in and a good story here.
Yeah, here's a story.
The movie.
There's a bunch of
Gary,
stories.
take it from here.
Oh well, before we cast her, and we've got all the drawings and we've got some storyboards and there's script pages and everything. And Jeffrey comes in and goes, "Oh, who you thinking of for Esmeralda?" And Kirk says, "Well, we're thinking of like a Demi Moore type person." And Jeffrey looks at both of us, like, "You idiots." And he goes, "What do you mean a Demi Moore type person? Why don't you get Demi Moore?" And we're like, "Oh, you mean you can do that?" We didn't know we were allowed to.
So we Demi came in, and we ended up pitching a couple of sequences to her
while she was breastfeeding.
Yes, while she was breastfeeding. So I'm the one who was actually tasked with pitching these storyboards, and I'm like, I think I'm barely 30 at that point, and here's Demi Moore, glamorous movie star, breastfeeding her baby, sitting in the front row, and I'm going, so here you see Quasimodo, jumps down off the bell tower, and
and she was a sweetheart. She really was. I mean, we had heard stories like, "Oh yeah, her nickname is Gimme Moore, and she's like runs roughshod over directors," and she was great. I mean, she was a total pro. She gave us everything we wanted. She was awesome.
Yeah, she was a total professional. I actually really enjoyed working with Demi, and I think I think what was important to her, and I think it's important to every actor, is she wanted to feel like she was contributing to the creation of this character. She wanted to feel like she wasn't just coming in to recite the lines, that she would have kind of a voice in the shaping of what the character would become. And we kind of gave her that space, and so she felt really good about the experience.
What do you think about Esmeralda's sort of place in Disney history? She's sort of been like, she was a princess for a while, and now she's not a princess anymore. And,
I didn't know she ever was a princess. I mean, I thought she'd been kind of. She and our other girl have been passed over on the princess front.
Yeah, we tend to create heroines that are a little more challenging for.
Right. Well, I mean, there's a lot in Hunchback that is challenging.
Oh, yeah.
I think still today.
No question. And no apologies.
No. I mean,
exactly.
You have to fight through that stuff to get some of that stuff in. And what did people think when the first time they saw Hellfire?
Oh, wow. Well, believe it or not, we actually had a lot of support on that movie from the executive ranks. Both Tom Schumacher and Peter Schneider really believed in it. Michael Eisner was a big fan of the book, and even after the departure of Jeffrey, when he went off to form DreamWorks, he was a real champion of the movie. So we had a lot of support. We were able to make a lot of bold choices that if we hadn't done Beauty and the Beast, I don't know if we would have gotten a chance to make.
Right. Is it true that Katzenberg didn't allow facial hair on the characters, and that's why you put Kevin Kline? Either like Gary is wearing right now.
Yeah, it was part of it. We were, he would always turn down any design that had facial hair. We put Gaston and a mustache. No mustache. He had
like an Errol Flynn kind of look to him.
So we gave Phoebus a little patch down here, just kind of as a way of just expressing, our point of view as far as facial hair is concerned.
Well, what was your relationship with Jeffrey? He's in the news again today. There's this giant Quibi article.
Oh, is there a new Quibi article?
Yeah, I'll email it to you.
Okay, thank you. Please do. I've been following this closely.
Yes. What was your relationship with him?
I appreciated Jeffrey when we were working with him because he had sort of a really kind of laser-like focus in terms of story, and he could diagnose pretty accurately what was and wasn't working. Where we would sometimes disagree with Jeffrey was what the solution for that was.
One of the things I appreciated about him was that he would come in and look at a story reel or a storyboard or whatever, and he'd find problems. There's guys, this isn't working, and you should do this or this or this or this, and he'd throw out like 6 solutions. Most of them were not workable either, but we found out, and I think I learned this from Rob from Minkoff, is that Jeffrey isn't really interested in us using his solution. He just wants us to address the problem. Right. He's identified a problem, and however we fix it, he's happy. He'll throw out ideas, and if we use one, great. But if we don't, he doesn't get upset. And I know I've worked with other executives that if you don't use their idea, in the next meeting they'll go, I thought we talked about this. I thought we discussed that we were going to do that. But Jeffrey was never like that.
My favorite phrase is, I thought we agreed that we were going to ABC.
Yeah.
Right.
And I was like, I didn't agree to anything.
Yeah. All I understood was there was a problem that needed fixing. And that's what we got from Jeffrey. And that was something we really appreciated.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, you guys turned, as we've said before, you turned left and went into Adventureland for Atlantis. And can you just talk about why that was so important to you guys at the time and sort of the impetus behind that?
God, we after doing 2 movies kind of back to back, two back-to-back musicals, we were definitely, it's like the 2 of us had done back-to-back musicals, and the studio
was churning out musical after musical. Every other thing was another musical.
10 years worth of musicals, kind of based on the template that Howard established back on The Little Mermaid. And great movies were made as a result of that. But by the time we got to 1996, 1997, we were sort of thinking about, well, what else could we do? Could we try something?
Isn't there another kind of movie we could make?
Another type of movie we can make.
Right.
Animation is this kind of limitless genre. Why should we, just confine ourselves to a certain type of storytelling?
And we also, kind of got the sense that a section of the audience was getting a little weary of it.
Right.
There was always going to be a section of the audience that loved it and would never want us to change. It's like, just keep cranking out those musicals with the talking animals, and we will be your fans forever. We knew those people were always going to be there.
Right.
But we also knew that there were people that were like, yeah, it's another goddamn Disney musical. Great goddamn Disney animation, and it's great. Yeah, but
yeah, we made the mistake.
They feel like they've seen it, and we wanted to get something new.
Yeah, probably. One of the things that happened in the 90s, the studio had so much success, which was great, but you get to a point where you start to make it look too easy, and you also get to a point where the audience starts to be kind of a step ahead of you.
Right.
And we wanted to break out of that.
Right. Do you think that the kind of response to Atlantis and also to Hunchback in a way sort of it kind of wilted under the weight of the expectations that either the studio or the merchandise, I remember there was a whole store full of Hunchback stuff at Disneyland, that all that stuff kind of contributed to how people thought about the movie?
Hunchback was a kind of a different situation because it was a darker and, more mature story, even though we tried to, Disney it up. People felt cheated and lied to by Disney because they were marketing showed happy, bouncy, talking gargoyles and a party. Come to the Feast of Fools. It's all a party, and that's what the marketing was. And people went to it, and there's hellfire.
Right.
So they felt that they had been tricked.
Right. There was sort of a mixed message that was put out there, and that was disappointing. I think for both me and Gary, we never quite felt like they tried to sell the movie that we actually made.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, after Atlantis, did you guys were you guys working on developing anything else? Can you talk about sort of leaving the studio after that?
After Atlantis?
Yeah.
Oh, geez. Man, because it was tough because Beauty and the Beast took 2 years, start to finish, for me and Gary. Hunchback took 3, start to finish, for me and Gary. Atlantis took, what was it, Gary? 5 or 6?
4.
4?
They each went up by a year.
They went each one up by a year? Okay.
Yeah.
Right. And
but
by
still,
the time,
4 years is a long time.
Yeah. 4 years on one movie, I was freaking exhausted. I mean, I remember I was feeling pretty burned out by then, particularly because we rolled right off Hunchback and right into Atlantis.
You guys didn't even talk about anything after Atlantis.
I don't think we did.
Yeah, right after the first thing I did after Atlantis as kind of a palate cleanser was I got the call from Tom Schumacher to work on the English dub of Spirit of the Way.
That's right.
And Gary, I seem to remember that you were already.
I was working on Romeo and Juliet.
That's right.
The one that Kelly took over.
Yeah.
Because it was an Elton John project, and Rocket Pictures, his production company, and he really he didn't want it to die, so he kind of brought it back to life.
Right.
I think with Baker Bloodworth and Kelly Asbury.
Right.
And so they they resurrected it.
Gary, was the version you worked on like significantly different?
I never saw Kelly's version.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
it's actually very cute.
That's what I heard.
Yeah.
I mean, the clips I saw, I didn't recognize anything.
Okay.
So I'm guessing it was the original concept for it was going to be kind of like a live action plates and live action backgrounds and humans with digital gnomes that would they'd look real, and then when the people walked away and finished their gardening, then the gnomes could run around.
Oh, right. They didn't do that.
They didn't do that.
No.
And they didn't want to do that. And Michael Eisner hated gnomes. And why would you do gnomes? I don't think gnomes are funny. My wife likes flamingos. You should do one about flamingos. And it just it just blew up.
I think there are flamingos in the final version.
There is. We had a flamingo in ours, and I think he kind of keyed on that, like that one. So,
well, how do you guys feel about the live action remakes? I know, obviously Beauty and the Beast has been done. I know Josh Gad is working on the Hunchback right now, and there's been talk of an Atlantis live action.
It's funny. I sort of have mixed feelings about the live action remakes. On the one hand, it's great to have been involved in movies that have had so much longevity and have created so much affection for them in the audience that they'd be excited to see a new adaptation of the movie. But sometimes I find myself saying, well, just go watch the old one. It's still good.
Go watch the animated one. You want to see it again? Watch the animated one.
I know.
I mean, my completely objective and non-varnished opinion is that the animated ones are better anyway, to every single one of them. But that's just me.
It's not just you.
You guys both have credits on the live action Beauty and the Beast, but so many other of the story artists and all these people that contributed don't have anything, and I'm assuming don't have any kind of financial.
Oh God, no. Yeah, no. I certainly didn't get a red cent from the live action.
Yeah, there was no financial to it, and the fact that we got credit was a surprise to me.
Yeah, me too. Thanks.
I went to the.
Appreciate it.
I got invited to the premiere at the El Capitan, which was a surprise. I know Don Hahn pulled strings to make that happen, and was there sitting in the audience with my girlfriend, and the credits went by, and it was like, holy crap, there I am. And
no, it was
evidently Don worked his magic with that as well.
Then you started looking for your check, where's my check?
Yeah. I've heard, so far the only rumor of Atlantis being tackled as a live action movie has been strictly on the internet. I haven't gotten any independent corroboration of that.
I've actually even heard the opposite. That at the last big, I can't remember what it's called, but the big convention, where Disney rolls out what their 5-year plan. Yeah. That Atlantis was not on the docket.
Right.
What are you guys working on right now, and what do you think the kind of state of animation is these days?
Well,
These days,
I was going to say, I'm actually encouraged right now about the state of animation, because I feel like with the streaming services, it has really opened up opened things up to different styles of storytelling and different genres of storytelling. I think perhaps, hand-drawn animation may finally find a new home with the success of Klaus. Other movies that I know are in development for the streaming services. So I'm encouraged by that, and I'm excited to see what's going to happen. I'm working on a movie right now that's going to go direct to streaming.
But it's not Galaxy Gas.
No, Galaxy Gas was a hand-drawn movie that me and Tab Murphy and a young producer named Craig Peck, we pitched. We developed we developed the script. We developed a lookbook and a sizzle reel, as well as attaching various actors in the main roles. And we pitched that thing everywhere. I worked on it for a total of about 4 years, not full time, but off and on. I worked on it for about 4 years, and sadly, the whole thing at the time kind of took a bad left turn and kind of crashed into a wall. There were certain names involved that I won't get into, but some of them are serving the rest of their life in prison. But I'm not going to name names.
Oh, don't name names. Beautiful pitch, though. I mean, I'll share the pitch reel. Is amazing. The animation is great. What about you, Gary? What are you up to these days?
I'm like kind of bouncing between three or four different things, none of which have really been green lit. It's like development on a project with an old writer friend. Another one I've been writing for a video game adaptation for Atari. Okay. The Crash Bandicoot series.
That's fun.
It's a kick, but it's like okay, we don't know. So
are you still technically employed by DreamWorks, or are you?
No, I'm away from DreamWorks.
Oh, okay, that I did not know. Yeah,
I've been out of DreamWorks for about a year.
Okay, wow, well, that's pretty interesting.
And then let's see, another project which I can't really talk too much about, but it's in the early stages of like script development, and it's based on an old comic strip from the early 70s, and like kind of an obscure like small town newspaper comic strip. But the son of the guy that did it has come into a lot of money and wants to produce it. It's like, oh, okay, yeah, I'll help. So
your money's just as green as anybody else's.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. I hope you're staying safe and happy and everything.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's always a thrill to get to talk to you. So I'm sure we'll talk soon. But thank you so much for this amazing opportunity.
You're welcome.
Bye, guys.
All right.
Bye.